Everyone wants someone just to feed them grapes, while you're laying on the couch.
That's why people like ChatGPT. It's just
That is a good metaphor. It's a grape feeder.
It is.
That's all it does.
oh
I
my
like
gosh.
that actually. And I feel like if anybody is a super worker nowadays, JP, it's you. And I hear you're working like 7 days a week. You're busting your butt doing a bunch of things. What are you up to nowadays? And what can you tell the audience about, what is future of HR?
Yeah, well, like I think for me, we started the podcast actually about 3 years ago.
That's really, really insightful. Like you're operating at a different level altogether. Like you said something interesting right at the very beginning there. Like what they're getting rid of middle managers due to AI. Is that the future that we see here?
I mean, I don't know if it's the future. I mean, that's what's been happening in the news, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of look at what
Welcome to Directionally Correct, a Beacons podcast with Cole and Scott. Today's guest, JP Elliott, founder of Future of HR Consulting.
Hey, Directionally Correct fans. This podcast is dedicated to you to help educate and entertain you on how to effectively do people analytics, workforce planning, talent intelligence, behavioral science, and understand the impacts of AI in the workplace. If you're looking to stay connected to the podcast, make sure to subscribe to Directionally Correct Substack newsletter, where you can read Cole's articles or watch the video of the podcast. You can also see video on Spotify or YouTube, or listen to the podcast on your app of choice. Feel free to check out Cole's new book, People Analytics, and everything else that's going on at colenapper.com. As always, all opinions are our own, and thanks for being a listener.
You become totally free. This is, I've heard people describe this when they've quit and they got that like 2-week grace period where it's like, yeah, I'm transitioning out. Then you could tell all the truths because you don't care about social conformity. You don't care about, whose toes you're going to step on because, ostensibly you're never going to see these people ever again.
Yeah. I had kind of a similar but opposite instance one time earlier in my career. I had gotten a job offer yet, but I had not quit yet at my current job, but I knew I was quitting. Like I knew it was coming. And so I had this recurring meeting like every day because I was working on this big project for a senior leader, and the senior leader just hated my guts, and they hated the way I was approaching everything. And I knew I was quitting, so I started agreeing with everything they said. And like the day before I put in my notice, they were just like, "Wow, you really turned a corner. This is like I feel like we could really have a productive relationship." And I was like, "Well, I'm leaving."
This is the thing though. People say like, I don't want yes men around me. It's like, yeah, you do.
Yeah, you do.
Of course you do.
Yeah,
Definitely.
JP, do you like having yes men around you?
Yeah, of course, sure,
Of course.
Hey, we got a self-actualized leader. That's good. Thank you.
yeah.
JP.
No, I
Just
think. Look,
be-
I mean, it's a yes, and maybe this is what people, that's what you're hoping for. That's a self-actualized leader. Other leaders just want complete, and utter yes, right? And that's not great. But yeah, what story did I walk in on? By the way, did you you're talking about
grapes?
What? Say it again. Sorry, Scott.
Everyone wants someone just to feed them grapes, while you're laying on the couch.
That's why people like ChatGPT. It's just
That is a good metaphor. It's a grape feeder.
It is.
That's all it does.
Oh
I
my
like
gosh.
that actually.
I'm
I
like,
might use that.
I'm like, I've changed this. What do you think about this? They're like, this is so much better. I mean, it's like, are you sure? And then then it's like, well, maybe, it's like, I don't know. It's crazy. But that's one reason why that's so popular. It just sucks up unbelievably.
I use the chat GPT, to just speak to it sort of function. And the other day I called it Siri and it chastised me a little bit, I got to say.
No way.
Yeah. Try it. I mean, but your robot overlord will remember it. Just remember that.
Exactly. Yeah, anyways, I'll get into that. It's a funny, we should say that one for the podcast. It's funny because I'll tell you I'll bring it back. That's a really funny story. It blew my mind. It was weird, actually.
Right.
Oh, go for it. Go for it.
So we were working at a consulting client and a friend of mine who's really into all, an AI. And so he's got it on his phone, he pulls it out, and we're working through something. He's like, listen to our conversation and give us feedback. And so we're working through this for client work, and all of a sudden it like speaks up. And then I'm like, hey, that's enough, chat GPT. And it's like, oh, I'm sorry. But it was like interacting. Like it was so weird because it interjected a couple different times. And I was like, it just felt so weird to be talking to the phone, but it felt like it was someone, it could have been there in the room on the team. It just didn't have all the right answers. It was wild. I've never done that before. So
this is the future that everyone talks about, right? We're going to have our like co-pilot next to us.
Exactly. And
I just think it like the senior leaders are sitting around and like, well, who's going to get this individual contributor to shut up? They keep interjecting all the time. They realize it's just an AI.
That's what it kind of was. He interjected, and I was like, "What?" And like, we didn't ask you yet. And I was just like, "Turn that off. It's annoying." So,
is the idea like of an AI super worker like even a real thing?
No,
not a thing. Strong.
I don't think that's a real thing yet. No, I don't think so, for lots of reasons. But it's some great marketing from Josh Burson.
Yeah.
Have you seen the video? They have a cartoon of it. They have a cartoon super worker. It's like it's funny. I mean, they made a 4-minute video like of the AI super worker.
So, I thought everybody had bought into the super worker concept, JP. Why is it not a thing?
I think that the hard part is that it's just unrealistic to say everyone's going to be a super worker. Can you get more productivity? Absolutely. But to all of a sudden say we're all going to be supercharged, it's one more thing you have to deal with, right? It's like one more task you have to think about, right? Or something to use. We already have a big tech stack. Like, okay, so how do I use this, right? If I'm now not building PowerPoints by myself, but I'm building PowerPoints with ChatGPT, I'm still having to do something. Now, if it's completely an agent, but that means it's an automated task, it's been simpler, right? That's where we're at today. I don't know. Maybe it will take over and do more because it obviously has the capability. But the idea that I'm going to become like so much better would require me to be more intelligent, have better judgment skills. Like, I don't know that ChatGPT is going to do that. So it just feels like a lot of hype. And that's the biggest problem, right? You're just like, it's so hyped out.
What is better too, right? Like what I've noticed so far is like a lot of the stuff I would consider fun tasks are being taken away, right? Like crafting, a document. So, some are coding. I mean, granted, it would take a long time and like this sort of thing, but that's just like the problem solving. That's the fun stuff.
Exactly. I mean, I think you're, sometimes like even doing the theming of like thematic theming from interviews.
Yes.
Like getting the employee engagement survey, reading through 300 pages of comments, that's not
Let's go crazy. Let's go crazy. Yeah.
But I think to your point of just taking the output from a ChatGPT and then thinking that's gospel, and even if you tweak it 20%, the problem is the input's got to be good. So if you know what you're doing and you can set up a great prompt with some context, you'll get something out that's pretty useful, but you have to know what you're doing. And it's getting better where the output gets better. But I agree, you're missing the creativity. Like, and if you don't take, like for me, everything should start with you, whatever you're doing. Doesn't matter if it's an email, it doesn't matter what it is, write that out, have the idea, then let AI mess with it a little bit, make it a little better, pull it out, and then make it human again and make it back in your voice or make it accurate.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you just take something off the shelf, it's just never perfect yet, but it could get better. And maybe it does get to the point that, it replaces us. I don't know. This podcast would be AI. We could have all of our AI avatars do this, and just Notebook LLM would do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of the horseshoe effect. You almost start up where you end up where you almost started in terms of the AI usage. And I feel like if anybody is a super worker nowadays, JP, it's you. And I hear you're working like 7 days a week. You're busting your butt doing a bunch of things. What are you up to nowadays? And what can you tell the audience about, what is future of HR?
Yeah, well, like, I think for me, we started the podcast actually about 3 years ago. We'll have the anniversary next week, so it's pretty amazing. Over 300,000 downloads. Thank you. And that
the JP Elliott experience
is the JP Elliott. Yeah, the Future of HR podcast is kind of the JP Elliott experience. You guys put a lot more of yourself into the podcast than I do. I'm there to really help the guests shine and make sure they can get their material across. But it is fun to do the podcast. I learn a lot, and that's allowed me to just basically say, with a mission of helping develop next gen HR professionals, elevate the function, to just go into that all in. And so now I'm running programs called the Next Gen HR Accelerator, which is for director level HR leaders to be more business focused, strategic, influential, and help be much more take business strategy and make that an HR strategy. I'm working on another program for next year called Next Gen Academy that I think is going to be big. And then I'm doing some custom HR capability training. And then I'm doing some consulting. And luckily, I've been asked to be a keynote speaker 15, 16 times now for different Fortune 500 companies, HR conferences. And that is something that's been super fun, but an awesome way to get to know the team. So yeah, I'm living the dream. But as you said, super worker, AIs helps. But when you're running your own business, you have to do a lot. And that is, that's what you learn when you run your own business, right? Who's going to do invoices? Who's going to make sure you're doing your taxes properly? Who's booking your travel? Who answers the emails? Who does
Sounds
the client
like you.
work? Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
A lot of those things. Yeah.
It's a lot, but no, I'm working on that. So I've got, just, I'm about to hire somebody and bring in the team. And so I've got, that's going to be great. And at least for some of the help that I need, but it's been an amazing journey. I love it. And I love the agency of being able to kind of create and go where I want to go.
Where do you want to go? Like, where are you envisioning this going off to?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a 15-year-old son, a 12-year-old daughter, so I got to get them through college. And so let's be
You keep
realistic.
wanting things, like, keep having to pay for things. You got to keep working,
Yeah.
right?
But I mean, truthfully, like, this is a legacy builder for me. And the reason why I'm doing this and passionate about it is just like, it's amazing to be able to help so many people and try to give back to what has given me a ton. But I want to make it a sustainable business. I mean, I want it to be where, I'm the go-to place for developing next gen HR leader talent. And that's the programs I'm trying to build and the thought leadership I'm trying to build in that space. And we'll see, and hopefully that keeps us in business. Otherwise I'll have to go work for my AI overlord or go back and get a real job, who knows? So far, so good though. So far, so good.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think you're doing an excellent job. First of all, JP, you're out there. Like, I see all this stuff that you're doing and it is very admirable. I think you even started defining yourself as a content creator. Are we content creators? Like, and do we fit the definition? And like, what is a content creator and why is that kind of a part of your identity now?
You both are definitely content creators or creators overall. But when I started the podcast, I don't know about you guys, but I was like, okay, well, if I want a podcast to take off, like, who else does podcasts and what do they think about? How do they market it? And so that led me down this rabbit hole of like creators, not influencers, not someone who's selling a product on TikTok or Instagram, but creators who might be selling information, selling courses or consulting work. And I started to realize there's a lot of tactics you've got to learn how to do and market to get people to notice you, right? The podcast is actually the least discoverable way to do anything in social media, right? It's great for building relationships in terms of people get to know you or me. It's long form content. It's trust building, but it's not like someone can find us on YouTube, not like someone can find you on LinkedIn, right? That's discoverable. And so those are not relationship platforms. And so as I kind of just got into it, I was like, okay, if I'm a creator, what does that really mean? And how do I embrace it? And so for me, identity and choosing your identity is really important. And so I kind of took that path and said, okay, how do I get better at this? Because especially when I decide I want to make this a full-time business, then I realized that is a way to make sure that people understand what I'm doing. If people don't know what you're doing, they're not going to hire you. Now, Cole, you're 100% a creator because you're writing books, speaking, you post a lot. Sky's a little more in the behind the scenes. I think, he wants to create more, but I'm not sure he's allowed to at this point. But maybe someday he can go out and be a little bit more out there. But absolutely, Cole's 100% a creator for sure. You are my.
I go more the harder, arduous academic writing route, which you work your ass off and then like you get no credit. I think that's just how it goes, right?
That's true. You've written some great stuff, and it does get a little bit hard to understand. we need to break into a LinkedIn carousel for you, then people can understand it.
Yeah, you're not a super worker, Scott. You're super at working.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Well, I think so JP, for those of you who aren't familiar with you, you were actually a chief people officer in the past. And one of the things that, I think about in terms of we haven't had chief people officers on here very much. And one of the reasons why we haven't is because, largely speaking, in my opinion, many of the chief people officers that we would talk to aren't really analytics native people, I would say. But I would definitely put you more in that camp. What would you say makes you kind of an analytics native HR leader, and why, some of these folks who maybe you would be training the next generation of HR leaders, what they can learn from you in that space, and what makes a valuable HR person of the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've been a CHRO in private equity. I've been head of talent. Been head of HR. I think the IO psychology background is partly why, just doing stats in grad school and understanding the power of that and just being a little more numbers oriented, I think is really important. I think there's a lot of CHROs that are numbers oriented, but they may not be as geeky or find and get into the, what the R squared is and the P values and all that crazy stuff. But the reality is, like, now with AI and data and where we're going, it's so powerful. And we're getting to the point that we can have real predictions. I think they're starting to just be much better than they have been in the past when you have the kind of data that we're having really with AI and the different data sets that are out there. So I think it's really important that you understand not only the business and the metrics there, but actually understanding how do we start to take operational metrics and then combine those with the people metrics, right? Whether that's turnover or bio data, it could be personality. How do we start to predict who's going to be successful, who's going to turn over? That is where I think there's a lot of unlock that's not happening, right? For me, I'd love to hear you guys' perspective. I kind of think employee engagement surveys are going to be dead within 3 years. Like, no one's going to be doing an employee engagement survey, right? It's going to be real-time employee sentiment analysis or other ways to monitor that, because doing an employee engagement survey, waiting 6 months to get all the results back and then start having action planning session has been pretty outdated, even since the 2000s when it came out. So I see the future of us being much more real-time and using data, and almost really starting to become like a marketer, looking at like A/B testing. Like, how do we start to understand how things are actually impacting employees? I think we have that ability if we get past the privacy piece. So that's the big question.
Well, yeah, that's the big bugaboo. Like, if you're not collecting survey data, then what are you actually using? Some sort of like passively collected, I don't know, biometrics or some sort of like video cameras in the office.
Data exhaust. It's just data.
Yeah.
It's like, I think people will get there, to be honest. I think people will either say, hey, that's just a part of working for the company.
Yeah.
We're monitoring your emails. We're, get over it. Most people know that's happening. Now we could say, not looking at the actual content of the emails, let's say, right? That's the next level, but we're monitoring like, who are you emailing? How often are you in Teamsing people? Do the organization network analysis kind of stuff. I think that's going to happen, truthfully.
I've seen really cool, you frame it in sort of dystopian way there, but like they'll have like a video camera in, say, like a coffee shop, and they can tell how many customers are served and like run all these sort of metrics on every single employee. And on one hand, you're like, wow, that's really cool. You could actually coach someone in the moment should you get like some sort of warning there. On the other hand, hyper monitoring. Do we need this?
No.
I envision a future where, kind of like JP's point earlier, people are saying, oh, engagement surveys are so outdated. People are saying, that CCTV analysis, that's so outdated. We microchip everybody here. We get the best data. We don't even need the CCTV anymore. That's so 2020s of you.
What if you had someone up your ass just like, you don't seem engaged right now, Cole?
Exactly.
You feel like that might already exist. But anyway.
That's your AI co-pilot. Then you just
have
a little API plug or MCP. The co-pilot pops in and says, hey, you're not working hard. I'm not saying we go that far, but I think, we could be honest with people and say, look, we want to do this for good. Here's why we're doing this. And I've talked to some companies that are like, one was in Australia, they were doing this. And I was kind of like, the big thing for you is the privacy piece. But when people get more comfortable with that, or somehow they figure out a way to sell it, I think people will lean into more heavily.
There's lots of benefits to be spawned beyond just like, say, engagement, such as like if you could tell in real time when people are meeting or, who should be meeting, you got a big like innovation advantage there. Try to connect different parts of the company, come up with new things.
I mean, not everyone will be able to do it. Maybe the tech gets easy enough, but you'll have to have people like you on staff. I mean, I think that's why certain companies are, probably exploring with this. They've got the teams and the brain power to do it. Other companies and a lot of the HR teams I talk to, when I kind of do the data maturity model and talk about descriptive statistics to the next, they're kind of like, they're barely getting past to level 2. It's just, it's just the reality. And it's like, why? It's because the tech stack's not great. The data is not clean. It's the basics, right?
That's one of the most shocking things from doing this podcast. Like what we started, I don't know, 3.5 years ago, and just hearing how rudimentary a lot of these companies are in their data warehousing, serving, all this sort of stuff is just really shocking.
They're doing their best.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly. I think the challenge, right, is that, I'll go back to this, right? So I had Peter Capelli on the podcast a while back. He's written a book, talked about the least most important asset, right? If you haven't read this book, you should read it.
Okay.
The least most important asset is people. And the point of his book is because if you think about the way that general accounting principles are actually set up, the people expense is it's an expense this year. You're not going to be able to depreciate like I can depreciate a truck. As a business owner right now, I can buy a truck. I can depreciate that car or vehicle over 3 years. I can buy a warehouse 3 years. But if I invest and put money into a team member and training, development, leadership development, whatever it is, that's a cost this year, coming out of my budget this year. And so that is the major reason why people are not the most important asset, because companies and financial metrics do not reward that. The same goes for now. If I'm thinking about, am I going to make a capital investment to fix my HRIS system, or am I going to fix my customer system? Sorry, we're going to have a band-aided back-end system that's going to be, Excel file for a while and whatever. That's why it makes sense, right? Because they're trying to go put the money where the investment could be. And so those two things are really holding us back, that aren't actually in some ways HR's fault. We got to change the system a little bit more to get those going in a different direction.
Yeah. That's such a good point, JP. And, I kind of, I'd seen Peter Capelli's work on that topic before, and I kind of asked the thought-provoking question of like, what would it take to depreciate human beings? And then I realized that you'd like basically have to be a slave to the company. And so like, that's not super desirable either. But I guess we've got to figure out some way of kind of changing the formula to make it to where investing in people isn't such a difficult thing for business to do. But I want to think, like, one of the things you've been talking about a lot lately, JP, is like how does HR itself create value, and how do you create business partners to create value, and building kind of that strategic mindset. Do you want to talk about that at all, and what role that plays in how you're building future leaders in HR?
Yeah, of course. It's really important. So I think a few things have happened that we have to kind of just recognize. Since the pandemic, I think HR overall has actually risen in stature, right? It's seen more strategically. CEOs understand the human pieces more. Even with all the stuff that's happening today, and we'll talk more about, whether it's cutting middle management or whatever, they understand HR can play a bigger role. And so as that's happened, expectations for HR has risen significantly. So it's no longer just good enough to be a business partner, be a support function. We have to start figuring out how we create value. And so for me, when I look at that model, it's two things. Well, there's 4 ways I think about this, right? Partly it's mindset. And HR leaders are one of the only functions that can sort of put a different hat on for a little bit and think differently, because we're not as siloed as maybe sales or marketing or finance. And so 4 things you've got to do as an HR leader to create value. You have to innovate like a product manager. You have to think like an investor. You have to build brands like a marketer, and you've got to redesign work like an AI engineer. And the reason why all 4 of those work together is because innovating like a product manager means you're thinking about customers. You're thinking about a journey and a roadmap, and you're going to ship a product, but you're solving a need and a benefit. Like, we're not just making stuff to make stuff. We understand what it's going to do and how it's going to actually help somebody. Thinking like an investor, it means we need to start thinking much more strategically about, are we going to invest in this HR product or initiative, and why are we investing in this? What's the ROI? would I invest my own money? Start thinking like a private equity, a venture capital, and really starting to be much more thoughtful about stopping work that's not going to have a lot of value. Third, when you think about building brands like a marketer, we get in the feature trap. HR loves, I call the feature trap, right? So I'm like, oh, our new leadership development program has 40 hours of training. Cool. We spend 40 hours. What's the benefit? Like the benefit is, oh, you're going to be a better leader. You're going to have lower, turnover. You're going to have better performance conversations. Or we're like, we now have AI employee sentiment analysis in our employee engagement survey. And the managers are like, so what? It's going to help you do this. So we got to switch from like features to benefits, and we got to get into like the psychology and the psychological benefit of the product, right? You think about that, just we don't do it very well. And then of course, I'm not starting with AI, but once you kind of got there, you got to think about how do you redesign the work like an AI engineer and think about prompts and where AI fits in, what a human can do, what can be automated, what new things you could build out to create new products and new values. And I think where HR has always struggled is we're taking a traditional perspective. We think we have the answers usually because we've been around. We're like, oh, it's a turnover issue. Here's my little playbook. Instead of trying to build a new playbook. So my push on HR, because this is, it's still all new, is to wear these different hats, innovate like a product manager, think like an investor, build brands like a marketer, and really then start to use AI to supercharge all that.
That's really, really insightful. Like you're operating at a different level altogether. Like you said something interesting right at the very beginning there. Like what they're getting rid of middle managers due to AI. Is that the future that we see here?
I mean, I don't think it's the future. I mean, that's what's been happening in the news, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of look at what like Facebook and a bunch of these companies have done. I don't have the stats in front of me. It's been a little trending, right? And so who knows how many companies have made this big move? It's been mostly tech, at least getting the headlines. The analysis on that is they're spending a lot of money on AI data centers, an outrageous amount of money to make AI work. And they've got to figure out a way to pay for it, right? Let's just be honest. They're not trying to like hurt their margins. They've sought to deliver a certain margin to the street. So one simple way is to let's get rid of some of these middle managers because AI is going to now take and help out there. And I just don't buy it, right? I think Jensen Huang at NVIDIA has 50 direct reports. I'm sure he knows all their names.
Right.
I mean that it just doesn't make any sense, right? When I hear
weekly one-on-ones. Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't do one-on-ones. They don't believe in one-on-ones. And by the way, a CEO isn't the same as managing middle management, right? Having to get work done every day. It's just very different. Like the people he's hiring should be able to do their job. Otherwise, they shouldn't be there anyways.
I mean, I've had a million conversations with like low-level data engineers and like the sort of like esoteric, very pointed sort of questions and like concerns that they have. And I've sat in my fair share of very high-level meetings and sort of like the overview 3-year sort of plan that they sort of view the world from. You need a filter. You need a filter between these two groups, right? And I think that's the role of the middle manager to, kind of translate between these two groups. It ain't going to be fun for you, high-level executive, if you got to deal with low-level employee concerns.
Oh, that's such a good point, Scott. Like,
yeah.
I almost want like to record that and like play it again on a loop because like there's so much truth in that. In terms of, I mean, I don't know how long it's been since you've been a middle manager, JP, but like I feel like half of my job as a middle manager was just to translate the BS from below to the BS above and the BS from above to the BS below. And, maybe AI can do that effectively, but I don't know. I think we're a little ways away from that.
Yeah, I think you're right. Now, I think so. The middle management, maybe there's different definitions of it, right? I think when people think middle managers, I think some people think this is like a manager level. Like we're getting rid of, a manager who's got an analyst underneath them. A lot of times the middle managers, they are directors, right? They might be middle. Yeah. And to your point, they are translators. They're translators for the organization to figure out like what this big initiative, this amazing goal, we're going to do a 30% growth and open these data centers and hit new markets. CEOs have these crazy visions, their big picture, right, on one page. And then the directors and VPs have to figure out what does that actually mean? Like, how do we get there? Yeah. And so if you get to that middle management, I agree, you start to get lost a little bit. And I was just talking to another person yesterday who's a director in talent, and she's reporting to a CHRO, and it's a pretty tough, difficult situation, right? Because see, kind of unrealistic expectations. But I was explaining to her, when you go to a bigger company and you become a VP, because you're asking about bigger companies, smaller companies, and I said, you go to a bigger company, what's going to happen if you get to a VP is your entire job is managing up. It's like thinking about the meeting before the meeting, who needs to be thought about this, who's bought on, and that's the entire job. Like the team's doing the work below you, so you get the decks ready, but you've got to figure out how you actually get something pushed through in these big corporations. So AI is not going to do that. No one's going to listen to AI in that way, and so I just think we're kind of a little bit of, it's a trend that won't last. The other piece, and you guys are both social scientists, we know this, right? This idea of like 8 is the typical span of control that we use as a metric for a long time. You could tell me with AI, maybe it pushes to 12, maybe, right? Maybe there's a way to get a little bit more, but at some point, humans aren't that smart and good, and it's going to break. Like I can't manage 15 people, 20 people, right? It's a lot. I can't even know what they're doing. So I think that's the sort of like, that's the breakdown where when you hear about these crazy spans and just, firing people en masse, I think they'll hire them back, frankly.
Well, yeah, I mean that's the problem, right? Like, so you get rid of like people with a bunch of social capital, they understand the business inside and out. You get rid of them, then you hire, a new group in at twice the cost.
Right. We don't have the organizational knowledge or history. I mean, it's a good point. So I mean, it's hard to know where we all end up, but I don't see AI, right? AI is not doing middle management work today, right? It's not even close.
You also brought up the point of like how can a manager look down, not look down, but like manage down and like have a span of 15 folks as well. But from the bottom up, it's isolating as well. Like if you don't have time with your manager and you need that information, it's bad on both ends to have a super large flat organization.
Yeah, there's probably an assumption that everyone who's maybe, I guess, remains in the organization is like an A player and super top performer. And we just know that statistically that's not accurate. And so some people are going to need more support than others. Some work is way more complicated, right? Some work you have to have less spans because it requires more knowledge and technical expertise. If we're talking about call centers, sure, we've always been able to do 12, 15, maybe 20 in a call center because the metrics and the job's routine. So this is just basic, IO psych stuff, to be honest, that they're breaking. And it gets trending. Now, I don't think a lot of companies are doing this. I just think you're hearing the news a little bit. It's not like we're hearing this happening in every industry, but in the tech industry, it always gets a little more PR. So we'll see.
Yeah. There's another part of this that I think is, understudied is if you increase spans too much, that you can only do that temporarily. And the reason why is because it's kind of like from the employee perspective, they need to have a career path. But from the employer perspective, like you can't just take somebody who's been an individual contributor and then make them a vice president who manages 150 people. You've got to get some at-bats and some reps in between there. It's just not possible. And so I think that's why there maybe is such a push to try to use AI to do all that management related things, because, otherwise it's too much to ask for someone to make that leap. And like, I think it's very short-sighted. And it's something like you can only use that as a trick in your toolkit once as an organization, because it can't keep going.
Yeah. It's interesting. I was reading something. I don't know what article I read. It was around AI, but the premise of the article was that organizations would move from kind of the triangle in terms of like, less people at the top, more people down, get the spans and layers, to more of the actual diamond, right? With more people at the top, more in the middle, but less in the bottom, right? Kind of that was the idea that we're going to move towards this diamond with AI. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, there's always been that kind of predictions, but I was like, okay, yeah, maybe. I guess we don't have an entry level, but that diamond's going to really, it's going to get flattened pretty fast when you don't have anyone to move into your middle. It's going to be tough to see that. So we'll see. Everyone's got perspectives and opinions.
Who's the middle managing?
I guess they didn't fire the middle managers in this diamond model. But to your point, I don't know. It's just one of these like tech articles that I read. It was from a Silicon Valley. I think it was like a PE backed or venture backed, one of those articles you find. It's interesting perspective. I mean, who knows?
Hey, JP, I got. Oh, sorry. You can go.
No, you go, Scott.
I got a bit of a personal question here. Like, so I see you cruising around PsyOp, and you got like this executive presence. Is this something that you work on? You train for? How do you like cultivate this?
You have to, honestly, I appreciate that, Scotty. That's nice. But you actually have to work on this. Like, executive
Yeah.
presence is the hardest thing. In fact, just wrapped up my Next Gen HR Accelerator yesterday, and we're talking about executive presence. We spend the whole week basically on the concept. We have executives come in and talk about it. And if I told you, like, we went back in the Wayback Machine in my first job at like Taco Bell, I got feedback that I joked around way too much. Like, my boss basically said, "Hey, stop trying to be the life of the party." Like, and I was like,
you were not Taco Bell material.
I was there for 5 years. They loved me, but it was good. I worked some drive-through time. I can make a grilled stuffed burrito. You got it. But I think the time was like, I started to realize he was basically like he's like, look, you're not going to be as effective because you're trying to be funny instead of trying to like get the point across. And so it's hard to say, but over 20 years of working, you just learn from leaders and you say, okay, well, how do you show up? Mm-hmm. And for me, the two rules are really simple. One, I mean, you have to build up your own kind of quiet confidence. You have to learn your own leadership philosophy. Like, that is one of the things. You've got to know kind of who you are deep down, like how you kind of want to operate. That's a really important part. And even writing that down is important. I think you also start having to understand, okay, well, what's the most important role I can play in this conversation right now? Like, how do I control my anxiety? How do I control my emotions and make sure I am showing up in a certain way? And so for me, it is very intentional. And the best CHROs on the podcast, and Cole, I've talked to Cole about this, and you guys know I've had like 50 CHROs. They're CHROs for a reason. Like, a lot of them could be senior executives anywhere on that executive suite, but they have worked on this. And sometimes it's hard to get them to be like, they might off script be a little bit more personable, but they're going to be on because that job is a big job. Yeah. So I think I've just learned that a little bit. I still want to be natural and normal and whatever, but I think you have to sort of take yourself seriously if you want to be taken seriously. But it just takes time. It really is a life lesson.
I feel like I'm looking in a mirror, man. I know what you mean.
I'm just glad we breathe the same air, JP.
Oh, you're so full of it. Oh my God. The other thing I'll tell you though, but on this topic though, episode 70 in the podcast is the 7 Rules of Power with Jeffrey Pfeffer. And that is actually one of the top 10 podcasts I talk about all the time. And Jeffrey Pfeffer, I've read all of his books on power because I'm a geeky, site guy. And, his books before his last book, 7 Rules of Power, are much more academic. And I think it sounds crazy, but HR needs to read that book. And I think because presence is about power and influence, and we don't embrace it the same way. And his book is very realistic, and it's just a great read. So to me, that was also what people have to like. They have to step into it and say it's okay to have some power or want to have influence or show up a certain way. A lot of times we're holding ourselves back. Frankly, that's the problem. It's not so much like you can't do it. You're just like, oh, I don't think I can. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I feel like isn't that one of the rules? Like, I read that book; it changed my life. I'm not even gonna lie, but I think one of the rules is like get out of your own way.
First rule number one.
Yeah. And so it's like that's the first thing you have to do. And frankly, I just never pass go, never get past rule number 1.
I always get in my own way. I think you're doing pretty good. I mean, I've seen your speaker reel on your website, so I think you're doing all right. I think you're out of your own way now.
Okay. Now we're throwing credentials at each other.
It's the not so quiet confidence that Cole's building there.
Exactly.
You want to do some confusion matrix?
Let's do it.
All right,
let's do it.
The confusion matrix.
All right, the rules are simple. There's no right or wrong answers, but Cole is the arbiter of truth. If he likes your answer, he'll make a social media tile that you can share with your friends and family. Okay, 5 random questions. What's something that has you just like really interested right now? Maybe something in the past week or something that captivates you.
All right. Well, I'm building. It goes back to AI. So I'm working to build an agent and deciding to like figure out a way, not an agent, but to improve my workflow. So I just basically been working with ChatGPT saying, okay, here's what I do. Here's all the things I've got, my podcast. what is something I can leverage. And so I'm working, that's this weekend's project actually, is to kind of actually build that with like Zapier. So I'm looking at like, right now, I'm trying to figure out, I was like, I have a lot of interview notes. I use the Fireflies, right? And so I'm like, what can I do with that? And so I'm working to actually send that to an Airtable and then have AI analyze that for key themes, right? And then actually categorize it by certain types of calls I've had. And it's like, I feel like there's a gold mine of information. Like you have great comments or something comes out of that. So, and that's all secure, but I was like messing with that a little bit and trying to figure out how do you make that connection point with like a Zapier to a Claude to Airtable.
That's the fun stuff. That's the fun stuff. Making
Yeah.
it all work
I mean, I just
together,
like,
right?
I just want to be able to do it. I've taken classes on it and it was good, but it was hard. Right. And I think, because I want to know if HR can do this stuff. And I'm like, well, if I can figure this out, then maybe HR can. But honestly, ChatGPT gives you a lot of directions. And I'm like, this isn't going to be that hard. I just need a couple hours to screw around and break something.
Yeah, I remember this was back when I was working on the book. I had uploaded a lot of the podcast transcripts that we had into Notebook LM. And I just asked, this was unrelated to what I was writing in the book. I was like, so tell me like what Scott talks about a lot and what Cole talks about a lot on the podcast. And man, that was some tough love. And I was like,
well, what did it say? What did it say?
Because it says the things that I'm actually saying, but it's also like, and Cole talks too much about this. I'm like, whoa, Notebook LM, give me a break. Like, don't,
yeah, no, I mean,
don't embarrass me.
That's awesome. Actually, I love it.
Yeah.
It's funny.
What was your last perfect meal, JP?
Yeah, last perfect meal was in Columbus, Ohio. So my friend Ken Keener.
Okay.
Yeah, I was out there for a speaking gig, but we had dinner at this Italian restaurant, and it was amazing. It was amazing. Like it was a shrimp Italian thing, but it was like one of the best meals I've had. That was a great restaurant. So that was the first night. Second night, I went back by myself and had the same meal. Like, they're perfect. Let's do it again.
I had one of these experiences in St. Louis. I found a Cajun restaurant. It was so freaking delicious.
Yeah, go back, right? Why not?
Yeah, right. Why mess with perfection? This will make Cole smile. Is a hammock a chair?
I know we're doing philosophy on this one. Wow. There's a tree fall in the woods. I'm going to say a hammock is. I'm going to say it's a chair. I think it's a chair.
Yeah, right. You can sit on that.
Yeah, I think if it's holding you up, I think it's a chair. It's a weird chair.
Okay, we're a little short on time. It's fine.
Sorry.
Do errors bug you? Like in the process, do you mind having error? Like Steve Jobs famously hated errors, wanted perfection. Bill Gates didn't mind modifying on the fly.
I think errors are I think it's just part of the process. I think that's good feedback. It's okay to screw up a little bit. I mean, I don't like a lot of errors. I don't want a ton of errors. But I think it's feedback on like how do you improve your process, like truthfully. So to me, I think you're going to make errors. It's impossible. So
can I make a deeper point on that?
Please do.
Because it's like I think a lot of people are talking about like how AI makes you dumber, but I think this is the root of it. Is the errors that you make is the opportunity for learning to occur, and if AI makes it to where you don't make any of those errors, you never learn. And so it's not like it actually makes you dumber. It just robs you of the opportunity to be smarter. And I think those are different things, and people are misdiagnosing the problem.
I think that's well said. I agree with you.
Yeah. That's a mic dropper. That's really good. Last one. What has you freaked out? What has you worried?
Oh gosh, freaked out.
Your kid's college fund?
Yeah, I mean, having a 15-year-old son and a 12-year-old daughter, that I mean, that's kind of a freak out moment. It's crazy to see them grow up, and it's very humbling to be a parent, to be honest, right? As you guys know, probably, but it's crazy. So yeah, that's probably
do you think by the time they get to college, it'll be the same as it is now?
I mean, I think it's the question I think about a lot. Like, I don't know that answer. I mean, my son doesn't really like AI that much. And I think but we'll see. I've tried to talk more to him about it, but he's not that into it. He wants to be a lawyer. So we'll see. Those jobs will probably still be around. But honestly, I don't truthfully think that college is going to go away and all that's going to happen in the the way that a lot of people are talking about it for a lot of reasons, because it's a signal to the market in terms of your intelligence, and you've gone through something, and only 37% of the entire population of the United States has gone to college, right? So really, the majority of people aren't going to college as it is. It's become too luxury. So I still think it's important. I just think the question is like, will it be more tactical, more like take the trade school mentality, but now trade school for like AI or trade school for other things. Like, can we break that down? And we had a debate in my family about like all the courses you have to take that, like, I'll seriously, fun fact about JP. Geology, hated it. Okay. So I was getting a D my first semester, a D in geology. So I pulled out, so I didn't get the D, right? I had all the tests for that class. I took it again the next semester, I got a C. I just could not care. I was like, I don't care about rocks. I'm not going to pay attention to rocks. And so those kind of courses, does that really help you if you're going to go do something else? I mean, that's the question. Is it relevant enough? We'll see.
That's so funny, JP, because I feel like you and I are similar in a lot of ways, but in that way, you and I are completely different. I remember the only class in college I ever got 100 on a test, and I got 100 on every test in that class, was in geology. And I just loved it for whatever reason. I was like, in another life, I should have been a geologist, so that's so funny that like that just never clicked for you.
I'm much more an idea guy, concept guy. Like, psychology was easy. Like, that kind of stuff was fun.
Like, hey, Cole, are you more like a igneous, sedimentary, or metamorphic rock kind of guy?
Metamorphic for sure, man.
Oh,
See,
yeah.
I love you. You're speaking my love language.
Oh yeah.
Talking about rocks.
You want to cruise on? I think I never got your answer, Cole. Is a hammock a chair?
I think
this is super inside. This is
an inside joke that is not going to track for anyone else. Yeah, I think I do not think hammock is a chair, and I think it's more of a bed.
Coming in hot. Okay.
Well, what do you think, Scott? I mean, you brought it up.
Let me ask ChatGPT real quick.
Yes, I was going to ask ChatGPT and see what it says. That's actually a good question. And by the way, who cares what ChatGPT says? Because there's no answer. You know what I'm saying? That's the problem with ChatGPT. We're going to take that as gospel. Like, there's an opinion there. That's the problem with like the ChatGPT answers. It feels like it's so right because it's so coming out of a computer, and it's like so quick.
It sounds good. Right. Yeah. Like you said earlier, like qualitative research, people's first opinion is like, hey, just throw everything into ChatGPT and just use whatever it says. And, that provides a, big overview sort of stance, but there's no substitute to actually like getting down and like reading the comments or interviewing folks and like understanding what they're actually talking about.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's my soapbox on qualitative research and AI.
Let's, you want to do some nerdery now, Scott?
Yeah, sure.
The nerdery. All right. Or we don't have to. We will. All right, let me pull up the first one. This is for you, JP.
Okay.
So it's called "Does Autonomy Mitigate the Stress of Working Long Hours?" From a scientist named Tim Ballard. I think he's in Australia or something. Mm-hmm. And he published some research showing, so there's been a lot of research that shows if somebody's role is crafted to give them more autonomy, that they have, higher engagement, less stress in the role. But he's looking at a pretty interesting question, which is, if people have autonomy, but then they have to still work longer hours, does that still stress them out? Like, does the autonomy weigh more, or does the stress weigh more? And one of the interesting things that he finds is that while autonomy helps, it is not a substitute for sustainable workloads. Managers and leadership can intervene by redistributing work, considering additional staffing, or setting clear expectations that long hours should be the exception for surges, but not a constant requirement. What did you guys think about this one? And did you have any thoughts in particular, JP?
I think what makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think the idea of autonomy is critical. I think that is, one of the most important things that people want, especially knowledge workers, but even autonomy for non-knowledge workers and blue collar workers. Like having agency and be able to decide how you spend your time or how you serve a customer or do your job is super important, right? And I think that's where there's a lot of turnover and burnout in jobs that are very, just routine and transactional. I was a little surprised though. I was kind of thinking maybe when you went there initially, like, would autonomy overwork that? But I think the problem is that no one wants to be burnt out, right? I think that is just, there's a we're humans and we're not machines. So there's a point where there's a diminishing returns of that effort. So I'm not totally surprised. Yet I also think, people can do some pretty hard things for a little while, right? If they're motivated, they'll push through and work long hours. You're in consulting, you have a big project, but that isn't sustainable for anybody.
Yeah.
Autonomy also comes with like a lot of stress too, right? Because like in theory, you're accountable to somebody else if you're like in an organization, and hell, we started off the podcast talking about yes men, right? If you just have someone telling you exactly what to do, then you always know the output that should be on the back end. In theory, we hire like really, really smart people and should trust them. But even being able to do work your own way, if you got a mountain to climb, oh my God, like it's not sustainable.
It's true.
What I wanted to kind of bring this to you because JP, one of the things I'm really grateful about with you is, you have kind of been here and talking to me and Scott ever since this whole thing got started, both for us and for you. And you've been a continual resource, which I'm grateful for. One of the things I've gotten to see is kind of the shift in your own career of, being internally, having low autonomy, but working crazy hours. And now you're external, you have a ton of autonomy, but you also work crazy hours. And kind of you being the like end sample of one in this experiment, what has that change been like for you? And how has that changed like your own stress load and your own kind of mentality on work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was way more stressed out working for somebody else, putting in 60 hours a weekend, because the reality is, especially when you're a CPO or any job, you have a boss, and you don't know when that boss is going to ask for something that maybe you think is unrealistic, or they're changing priorities. When you own your own business, have agency, maybe look, I didn't get revenue for the first 4 or 5 months of the business, right? I mean, I started a program, but the revenue didn't come in right away, right? So it's stressful. Like, you don't know what's next, right? I don't have, you got to go find that. That stress, though, for me, I turn into like, hey, I can go do something. My adjustments in the middle for Hogan folks out there. So like, I'm that duck moving around, that looks calm, but it's like freaking out inside. And so that helps me go. But I don't mind working the hours because it's my stuff. Like, if I decide to get crazy and work for 5 hours building the stupid agent on Saturday, and like that's just me. Like, it's my thing to do, right? If I'm editing podcasts. But if someone was telling me to do it, I'd be a little bit more frustrated, right? So that's pretty different for me. I don't know if every business owner feels this way, but the people I've talked to, I think, do feel a lot more agency, and they feel control of their time, and but it does have to match back to your goals. So I'm gonna take some more time off, as the rest of the year is not as bad. So I'm gonna have a few more restful days and like all that good stuff. But it was really busy for a while, and I think you also have to just go with that when you're a consultant, have your own company, right? Because you got to make hay while the sun shines, or that stupid saying is.
Be your own man. I love it.
Scott, do you want to hit us with an article?
Yeah, y'all want to talk about introverts? Y'all want to talk about network effects?
Let's start with some introverts.
Introverts. Okay, so we know that people's personalities tend to match their jobs, and people tend to leave jobs that don't match it. This sort of thing. But what about those introverts? Like we're coming to a AI existence where, in theory, your social structure is going to matter more in certain respects. But there's a lot of anxiety in introverts around different sort of things. So they conducted a study, 11,000 folks, and 31 are classified as highly introverted. And it's a bit of a no shit Sherlock sort of finding here, but like people find these sort of situations have a lot of anticipatory anxiety and exhaustion after events, and they go through phases of trying to avoid sort of situations or try to mitigate them altogether. But anxiety for introverts is a real thing, and they have these various coping strategies.
Do you think it works?
Avoidance.
I guess the bigger question is are some professions are they cordoned off from introverts being able to be successful because of their trait incongruence with the position, or their coping mechanisms that introverts can not only survive but thrive in those positions?
Yeah, I mean, like, you're gonna be a hard time being a salesperson as an introvert, right? It's like just part of the core skills. But I mean, like, people have to like present decks, even to small groups within their own team. These things require extroverted.
Is there a part of that you were talking about, JP, earlier about executive presence? Is there any kind of introversion, extroversion riff on that in terms of like, are certain types of people better than others in exhibiting those behaviors, or what are your thoughts there?
Well, interesting. I've tried to do the lit review for executive research. I tried to find anything that was actually relevant, and I honestly have not found anything that was that great. And so what you find that literature is basically a lot of self-help books, right? And then you got to now pick a model that one has a little bit better of an area. So that could be a good nerdery for us to figure out, because I've not really seen that the way that I'm happy with. I would just say the hard part is that I think in general our society is more extroverted, right? And we're becoming more narcissistic and extroverted, and so it's a harder place to be. But what I think people who are introverted that cope is they understand impression management. They understand how to be, not authentically themselves and play the game, but they might be exhausted later, right? And I think we all know those people that are like, oh my gosh, I have to go to that dinner after work and I'm just exhausted. Like I can't do anything else. I've got to go back. I need some time alone. And I think that's natural. So we should let people have that time. Also, a lot of introverts are way better thinkers. They might be also really good at asking questions versus, what we want in typical society here is someone who talks a lot, who acts confident, who's charismatic, all that stuff maybe isn't that good, right? We convince, or we look at someone who's really competent and confuse that for competence a lot, right? So maybe introverts are actually more competent than others.
The challenging work demands read like an IO meetup that you'd get in any city. So engaging with unfamiliar people, being cheerful / energetic, being in the spotlight, and being assertive. That's just Cole Napper.
I don't know about all that, but yeah, man. Well, let's hit the last one before we run out of time here.
Yeah, this is a really interesting study. So both of you guys, who's the most connected person you know? Any idea?
Well, I know. Are you getting to that point like where I always hear in like O&A research, it's probably come from you, where like your friends know more people than you know? Like, is
the friendship paradox. That's a really interesting one. But no, that's not where this is going.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'm not gonna like name their name because like I think that's rude. But yeah, yes, I can think of the person in my head.
Okay. Well, you shot my wheels off there. No, I can't.
I wasn't trying to. Like, I was just trying not to name people on here if they're not privy to what we're talking about.
So the overall study is like people's perceptions of other social network ties influence their levels of trust, even when they don't actually exist. So people tend to trust those who are more central in the network. That makes sense. Like advice giving network, that is. They tend to trust these more central figures, even when they don't realize how well connected that they are. But the interesting thing is when people imagine that themselves as important advisors in the network, they tend to trust people on the periphery even more. So it's kind of like looking through a prism. You envision yourself as a central connector and advice giver in the network. You tend to see everyone else in the same sort of light. So people trust well-connected individuals naturally. But, when they feel important themselves, they become more trusting of others.
Can I pick into one thing that you said there, because I want to make sure I understand it?
Yeah.
Are you saying that people trust more central nodes even if they don't know that they're central nodes?
Yeah.
That's wild. Why do you think that is?
You get ancillary signals from the rest of the network that person is, you don't know exactly who they're connected to, but you know that they're important.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's super interesting. Huh. Like all the rest of the stuff.
The side effect is that then you're more trusting of other people as well. So if you see yourself that way, then you're like, you're going to give people more trust than maybe you would have if you didn't see yourself in that center.
You can also make yourself more important just by pretending like you're more important, right?
And so why, if you're a central node, do you trust people more on the periphery? What's the logic there?
That's if you imagine that you have these ties. So if you think of yourself in these as a central connector, even if you're not, you trust people on the edges more effectively. And that effect is even stronger than the it's called the pipe effect, pipe versus prism sort of effect here. But it diminishes if you do actually have connections in the center of the network. So if you are
I thought
more
this article
central,
was going to be a lot funnier because it says imagined and overlooked ties. So I thought it was going to be about people who like imagine they're friends with somebody, but they're not really friends. And I was like, oh, those poor people. But
that'd be a good study. I'm sure
yeah.
That sounds like college for me. It's like, oh, I thought we were friends.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
that's a real thing too, right?
Yeah.
Like
that's a whole other sad discussion. That's interesting though. I mean, I think interesting to think more about, I guess, where do you think you can see yourself in the network? Going back to like executive presence, the 7 rules of power, though, I think, if you're feeling like you believe you have more influence, then you have more trust, maybe you're more likely to reach out to folks. I don't know, but interesting.
Well, like I remember one of the rules of the 7, I can't remember which one it is. I'm assuming it's pretty early, is use your power. So is this like if you're a central node, does that make you a powerful person in your opinion, JP?
I do think, a lot of people say your net worth, is your net worth is your network, right? You've heard that probably saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure it's 100%, but I would absolutely say having a strong network and having a strong social capital game and like people know you and trust you is super important, right? I mean, it's especially in like a tough economy, you're looking for a job. I mean, all that stuff does matter because we're social creatures. So to me, it does make a difference, right? And my philosophy in that is just give more value, be generous, think of like an abundance mindset, not scarcity mindset, and just go from there and not worry about it, right? And if someone doesn't give back or doesn't work out or they don't reciprocate, I don't worry about it. I just move on. It's like, hey, that's cool, but I don't hold grudges either. I think that's helped me to build good relationships and good network. Except for Cole, I'm kind of still bitter about Cole for some stuff, but I can't get into the podcast.
I mean, gosh, sorry, I didn't mean to. I was going to say this earlier about the best dinner. The best dinner I've had this year was probably that one you hosted at SIAP this year. So I wanted to compliment you on that, JP. That was really cool. It was a cool group of people, really great environment, and you put that together. So I was very flattered to be invited.
Awesome. Yeah. Aaron Sorensen at Lotus Blue Consulting gets a lot of credit for that too. And I told Charles we want to do it in SIAP in New Orleans. I said, I'm there. Tomas just said, Tomas Chamorro for Music, he's coming on the podcast next week. He said he'll come to SIAP. He asked me if I was going. I said, I'll go if you go, and you have to come to dinner. But I mean, it was a really fun dinner. So we should definitely do it again. It was cool.
Absolutely. Well, this has been really fun. I've been excited to have you on for a while, JP. I'm glad we finally kind of made it work. Scott, any parting words for JP before we wrap up?
JP, always a pleasure talking to you. Where can folks find you?
Probably LinkedIn, JP Elliott. There you go. Maybe in Dallas, you want to stalk me. That's great. Awesome. Otherwise, probably online's best though.
Yeah. Well, and if you're not already listening, you should be listening to the Future of HR podcast that JP hosts. It's really, really good. I've been fortunate to be a guest on there twice. So thanks again for joining us, JP. You've been listening to Directionally Correct, a People Analytics podcast with Cole and Scott, and today's guest, JP Elliott. Thanks for joining us, JP.